Alright guys, we're about to get into what in my mind is probably the most important part of the 50-50 or most important use of the 50-50 at the advanced level, and that's going to be controlling position and advancing your position. This is going to be absolutely paramount important when you are talking about winning high-level grappling competition, and certainly if you want to be able to use this for mixed martial arts so that you can get yourself on top and punch people in the face until they quit or the ref stops you. It's going to be a very, very good idea to learn how to pass the guard utilizing the 50-50. So let's get right to it. When Tim and I are caught in the 50-50, again, as before, we always have to be aware of the heel hook, and I can deal with this danger a variety of different ways. But as we noticed before, if I try to drive forward into Tim, I can't. It's difficult to come forward. Even if I get up to base, I can't proceed through his knee. Unless I'd like to think that I have ultra dominant crushing top pressure, but disintegrating his femur is probably beyond my ability. So we're here and I'll hold on and do all kinds of stuff, but I have no base behind me, and I'm going to have a very difficult time passing. Also, as you'll notice, the more I press forward into Tim's knee, the tighter this all gets, and the more difficult it gets for me to move. It really wedges my shin into the crease of his hip. So coming forward and driving forward like this is not desirable for me. It does nothing for me. If I want to hit Tim anyway, if we're talking about MMA, I can't posture up because the second I do, I just get pushed back. So it's no good in any regard, whether for fighting or grappling. So what we're going to do instead is this. Let's switch legs real quick. Right now, option A is going to exist, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to retract my left leg, the one that's inside of the 50-50 right now. If Tim has his legs triangled really deeply or really tightly, you'll notice there's no way I'm getting my foot out of here, so we're going to have to proceed differently. However, in many cases, people who don't understand this position will leave their feet apart. Now, when we look for the foot lock, we can come here, but say for instance I don't have time to finish the footlock, or the person I'm wrestling deserves to be in Cirque du Soleil and they just have the most disturbingly flexible knees of all time, and I need to advance my position. This is what we're going to do. Step one is, if I'm flexible, I can just retract my foot, taking it directly out. This is the simplest way to do it. Foot just comes straight out to the floor. Notice Tim's shin and calf are pinched in the crease of my hip. This is extremely important. From here, I'm able to lean to my right side, technically stand, and end up on top. You'll notice that right now my hands are not occupied, and Tim's leg is still stuck. Tim, can you stand? No, Tim can't stand. Anytime, if he stands at all, I can just push him right back down because he needs this leg for base, and I'm going to deny it to him, and as a result, I'm going to win this every single time. It's not a matter of skill. Tim can be 10 times as good as I am. All it is a matter of mechanics. He can't hold himself up. The slightest amount of pressure back to that corner there where he has no base, where his leg would go if he were to stand up, back there, is going to put him down. So we're in the 50-50. Option one is to simply retract my foot. If I'm a little bit bigger and I don't have that kind of degree of flexibility, that's no problem. Hip movement flexibility is oftentimes substituted for hip movement. Flexibility is not really what you want. It's nice to have. Flexibility is like the little skinny guy equivalent of going it's not the sort of thing that you want to depend on. So I'm going to move my hips instead. It's simple, just rotate. I can scoop myself back and I rotate. Rather than trying to curl my leg in here, I just turn my hips. It's still very important though that I don't attempt to turn in, because I'm losing control over Tim's foot, and he's going to be able to progress, stand up, hop over me, all kinds of different things. So again, we're here, I rotate, I'm keeping his calf pinned in the crease of my hip as I stand, and now I'm going to look to pass. Tim is seated upright, I can push him backwards, I'm going to push his knee out of the way, and drive forward. Notice my left hand is on the mat, corralling his hip. If Tim were a little bit smaller, I could be on my elbow. It doesn't really matter. The way that the absolute specifics of where you place your hands and feet are going to change all the time based on who you are and who your opponent is. Physically, how big you are, how small you are, how long your limbs are, things like that. Right here, it feels a little bit awkward for my elbow to be on the mat because Tim and I are about the same size. So my hand will be on the mat. But, maybe there's a little bit of space. So if necessary, if I feel that there's too much space between me and Tim here and that allows movement for him, I can just drop my elbow to the mat My knees are on the mat now. On the back side, no good. I'm going to start to sprawl out and be as heavy as I possibly can. I want to encourage Tim to turn away from me because that's going to start to give me options to attack his back or to mount, plenty of other things. So, again, here we are on the 50-50. I can create separation. If the heel hook's not going to get it done, we're looking to progress our position. So I look to the outside, step my foot out, or look to the outside and I rotate my foot out. One way or the other, my left foot gets from point A on the near side of Tim's hip to the far side of Tim's hip. If necessary, I can use my hand to do the same thing that my hip is doing, preventing him from standing up. Ideally, I'd like to use my hip to do the job because that allows my hand to be free, doing something else, whatever it is, whether it's punching, grabbing, pushing, you name it. But if I can't quite get that done, hold on to the foot, push the knee out of the way, control the far hip as I slide forward. My weight needs to go on Tim, and we look to pass. We're going to go one more time at regular speed. Let's go to the other side. So here we are, we entered the 50-50, I rotate out, and pass. Alright guys, in our previous movement we retracted our leg. In this situation we're forced to bring our foot across our opponent's body because the opponent has a greater understanding of the 50-50 position, and as a result they're triangling our legs, locking us in, and we can't go away, we have to now go around the 50-50. So again, as we discussed before, trying to proceed forward just simply doesn't work. In this case, Tim's legs are triangled tightly, so I can't just simply retract my leg and rotation's not going to get it done. So what I need to do is I need to bring my right leg from the right side of Tim's body to the left side of Tim's body. Now, I want to, as before, I'm trying to avoid flowery movements like this, and I want to use stronger movements like stomping and raising my knee. So if I turn to my right-hand side the entire time, as with everything else, the 50-50, the constant danger of the heel hook does exist, and I have to recognize this. So I can't just be turning to my right side. Notice when my right side is exposed, my right heel is exposed, Tim will take my foot off. Not a good idea. Also, you'll notice as we turn in here, Tim's knees get closer to the rest of his body, things get tightened up, and my foot gets stuck. So not only is this negative for the footlock, but it's negative for me moving. I need to be able to move if I want to proceed. So I'm going to turn to the outside, raise my foot up, and step it across Tim's body. My second foot is going to come in tight against the hip if possible. This is limiting his movement. Right now, if we rotate, I have a foot, I have a plant on either side of Tim's body which is boxing his hips in, preventing him from wiggling around. If I'm not flexible enough to get my foot in here, no big deal. All that matters is that something's there. I can bring my knee around. It does the same, it performs the same function. Now, it's very, very important in this position to avoid the footlock that I don't allow my right foot here to turn to the outside, because I can definitely still be heel hooked here. So if we rotate, if I turn my foot to the outside, Tim can definitely footlock me here. That's no good. So make sure that your heel stays pointed into their body. Now all I'm doing is I'm in technical stance, I'm going to turn and I'm going to take my left foot out behind me so that I can get some base. And I'm going to drive forward. So again, if we rotate, again, my heel's close into Tim's body, preventing the footlock. I'm going to turn out. I'm taking my left foot out behind me. You don't feel like you need to get all the way to your foot. It oftentimes feels awkward. Don't use the skinny little guy version of going like raw. Like people in jiu-jitsu get upset when you talk about using strength. People should get equally upset when you talk about trying to bend your foot over behind your head. It's just not the sort of thing most people can do, and it's a substitute for proper movement. So just get to your knee. Now notice, Tim's hips are completely boxed in here. My right foot is directly next to his hip. My left knee is in close, and my hip is smothering his. All I'm going to do now is I'm going to drive forward. My left hand is shooting behind Tim's head for the crossface, and I'm going to underhook. The crossface and underhook is not necessary here, but the idea is I want to point Tim's hips away from me and try to twist his body. So from here, I sprawl back until I can break his grip. It's important. Understand what your goal is in this position once we pass. So we'll get back to that in a moment. Here we are. Turning to the right exposes my foot. That's negative. So we turn to the outside, away from our trapped leg. I use a strong motion. I step my foot up and I stomp it to the floor. It can't be hanging out here. If my foot's hanging out, it's going to get caught. Stomp it to the floor. If you want, you can use your free hand to do whatever. You can rape choke and push him away. You can grab his hands. You can hold his knee. Anytime you feel your opponent starting to squirm, this is your free hand that you're going to use to stop them. Right now, I'm just going to hold on to the back of Tim's leg, or I can drop my shoulder in front, which frees up my hand. It accomplishes the same goal, only now my hand is free. Get out to the knee, drive forward. If you guys notice, for those of you guys who fight MMA, this would be a fantastically good position to punch someone from. So, again, my foot's directly against Tim's hip, locking him in here. My weight is not on the floor, sinking back. If I'm sinking back, Tim can kick me with his right foot and sit me down. Not the end of the world, but now notice my weight came off of my foot, potentially making it vulnerable for the heel hook. So I need to make sure that I stay up over top of him. Driving forward. Anytime you're in position to punch, what you're doing is fine for grappling. Remember, grappling is pointless if you can't use it in a real fight, so there's no point in tying up my hands and doing other things. So we're here, lock on. Don't sprawl back this way. It takes all the pressure off of Tim's knees. I'm going to sprawl directly against his knees. Greater force beats lesser force. So we're here, I sprawl directly against Tim's knee with my hip, forcing his feet open. My right foot circles behind. And I'm going to come to the cradle. One more time at regular speed. Guys, the one important thing to notice about these, a lot of times when you execute this, because you're so tangled up, it's not going to be at lightning speed. This is a position that you're going to use a lot of times, even on black belts. I've had a lot of success with this, but it goes a lot of times you'll inch along with it. Because the 50-50 is an interesting position because you can't progress forward. Ordinary guard passing doesn't really work against it, so you have to know the paths. You have to know the routes through it, and it doesn't matter if you're fast or slow. Provided that you're controlling your opponent, you'll be just fine here. So, one more time, here we are. Turn to the outside. If I turn to the outside, my heel's hidden. Tim can't even get at it. Stomp your foot to the floor. Shoulder comes in front. Knee comes out behind. Don't sprawl here. I want to put pressure directly on Tim's knee and feet. So we get heavy. Drive your knee up. You can pass. Where does your opponent want to turn? Invariably, they want to turn in, so my hand can come back and catch. One of a series of different ways. You could use your hand, you could use your foot, doesn't really matter, but for right now, for simplicity's sake, let's come to the cradle. It's a solid holding position that we can launch a lot of submissions from. All right, guys, in our previous pass, we went straight to side control, looking to lock our opponent up and we ended up utilizing the cradle. In this position, what we're going to do is we're going to utilize the same pass, only we're taking a different path and we're going straight to the mount. Passing through the 50-50 is great because you will oftentimes end up directly in the mount or on the back because you're putting so much pressure down on the opponent at such an awkward angle. So, same as before, we make an outward turn. Absolutely critical. Even if my feet are split apart, right now it's extremely difficult for Tim to get at my heel because it's pointed directly into him. So this outward turn is very important. You'll notice one thing here. If my knee is upright, Tim can grab it and pull it back over very easily, exposing my heel, putting me at risk. If I turn here and pull as hard as you want, you go nuts. It's very, very difficult for him to get at it. Right now, again, so make sure that your foot's not flat on the floor here. Someone's going to be able to peel it right back over and get at you. I'm turning hard to the outside. I want to be able to use my hands for something else other than having to protect my foot. So, foot comes in, steps across. If I don't have space, put your foot directly on the other guy. Give him a kick. Make sure you're kicking people not into their base. If you're up again, where's Tim's base? It's directly backwards. Pushing here does nothing. He can resist that all day. To the back corner, however, Tim will fall. My job is to make him as vulnerable as possible. So if we rotate so you can see that again, Tim's too close to me this time. I can't quite get him. Pushing forward into his hand or into his elbow is just not going to get the job done. I have to look at, okay, well, if I pull him, it doesn't work. If I push him, he's off balance over here, but I don't have the means to push him that way. So from the side, that's no good. That hand can be there, but that back corner is going to put him down. Once I put him down, I'm in business. So I'm going to duck my shoulder in front of Tim's knee, and I'm going to look to pass. My foot comes flat onto the ground just as before. So if we rotate, remember, we are at risk here. Very, very serious problem. So foot comes flat to the floor, shoulder in front of the knee this time. Hand's not wrong, shoulder's a little bit better. What's holding his leg back right now is my hand. I can probably do that for a little while. My shoulder, one, doesn't get tired because it's just mechanically, there. It's no longer a muscle holding him, now it's my body. And also, now my hand is free to do whatever it is that I want to do. So, I stand up. Remember, technical stance. Don't try to roll forward. It doesn't really work. If I roll forward, Tim can just kick me right back because I have no base. My key is to construct a base, a platform from which to apply force. So I get my leg out from underneath me, and now we're going to look to mount. In this case, it's absolutely critical that I split Tim's knees. Once I split his knees, I'm going to mount him. If I get really heavy to my left, Tim's right, at the very best, I'll pass the guard, which is, certainly not a bad situation. But if I can turn Tim all the way to his right, to his left side, my right, over here, I'm going to be able to split his feet apart and mount. So right now, rather than going before where we came underneath the head here, I'm taking my right hand, if I'm moving to my right side, and I'm going to cross-face Tim. What this is going to do is it's going to torque his spine. So I come underneath, and I sprawl my hip directly into his knee. The idea is simply to make him let go. I don't need to go nuts. I'm not trying to go crazy and just and hip in as hard as I can. All I need is just steady, constant force. If it's 1,000 pounds per square inch pressure, it's 5. It doesn't matter. As long as it's steady and as long as he can't get rid of me, his feet are eventually going to pop open. So we lock underneath. My free hand can be doing whatever I want. It can post. If I were you guys, ordinarily, this can come underneath. You can grab. It's really a multi-purpose hand. What's most obnoxious is when you get someone big and strong taking this hand and pushing the heck out of you. So I would recommend getting as close as possible to the other guy, because mechanically, if you look at it, if anyone who's ever been to the gym and lifted, if you take the bar on the bench and you put it all the way on your chest, you get into failure range. You get stuck. Human being is not strong in here. You get out just a couple inches and you can be extremely explosive. A small person can push you away. So if I give Tim the opportunity to be right here, he can push the hell out of me. That sucks. If I crunch in, I don't even need to be squeezing hard. Just mechanically, he's not able. His arms, he's like using his delts are out on an island here, as opposed to here where his arms are in proper alignment and he can push really hard. So we want to get so close to him. I don't even need to squeeze, but I need to make sure that I'm close to him, so close that he's not going to be able to push me away. So I lock in tight. I sprawl my leg down. Once his feet are apart, we're going to go to work. So my free foot is going to rotate out and catch behind Tim's knee. So let's rotate. My job, again, during this entire process is to keep Tim from grabbing me. Because as soon as I break his feet open, he wants to put them right back. It's just like if, say, for instance, if I collar tie Tim and he pops my grip off, there's a very good chance if he doesn't do anything, it's coming right back. So ideally, when Tim pops my grip off, he's going to hold on to it so it can't go back where it came from. So for here, again, we've managed, we're starting to come up and pass the guard. I'm looking to twist Tim up. Heavy pressure. Remember, get as close to him as possible underneath. I don't even need to squeeze hard. Sprawl your hip directly into their knee. Directly into their knee. And feel the feet pop open. Now, my free foot is going to come around and hook inside of Tim's knee. Here's the idea. If I attempt to mount, anytime if I'm on Tim's left side, the bottom leg, the left leg is going to be, or I'm sorry, that's left. All right, if I'm on Tim's left side, the bottom leg, the left leg is the one that's going to put me in the guard. So if I'm here and Tim strips out, here comes the one that I need to worry about. If I try to mount, that's the one that catches me, the left. So my job here, when we go through this position, is to use my free leg to deny him the ability to bring this, to get this. So my foot slides in, and my foot comes up. By the time he decides he's going to try to get at me, I'll already be in the position. So let's go through one more time. We turn all the way to the outside. I pushed him away with my hand, but maybe I can't reach far enough. My foot comes up, I push him to the back corner. Sometimes it's necessary, sometimes it's not. Foot comes down hard, shoulder comes in front. This frees up the use of my right hand. Base out. Don't try to do anything without base. I want to twist him, so I'm bringing his lower body this way, his upper body this way. Behind the head, twist him until the feet pop open. Outside foot comes in front. Right now, I'm trying to split Tim as far as I possibly can. Now that my left foot is holding his knee open, I'm taking my right foot out, letting his leg go, and we're going to mount. Again, here we are. Tim's got my feet trapped. We sprawl into him. Foot rotates out. I slide my knees apart. I'm trying to make this as uncomfortable as possible. When I stretch him, as soon as I release one, his legs snap down, giving me the opportunity to mount, sliding straight forward. One more time at regular speed. Let's go. To the mount. Alright guys, our next move is going to be a similar pass, only this time we're going to let our opponent expose the back and we're going to look to finish from there. So, again we find ourselves in the 50-50. The key being at all times protecting our own feet and then navigating through while twisting our opponent up and then breaking his grips on us. Anytime the other guy is able to grab you in one way or another, they can do something. They may not take advantage of it, but the opportunity for them to attack or do something weird that you don't know about exists. So as a general rule, you want to break their grips off when given the opportunity. So again, we turn to the outside just like before. Tim's seated upright. He can grab at me. It's annoying. I'm going to try to push him. My arm doesn't quite have the reach though, so I can lean back, get my foot on him, give him a kick to the back corner. Foot stomps to the floor. Remember, it doesn't dangle because we have the risk of the foot lock. Foot stomps to the floor. Shoulder comes directly in front. From here, I'm looking to base out. Left foot comes up. Foot's not going to get all the way out unless I have like one tiny leg and one long leg. So, base out to the knee, and we're looking to twist our opponent. Before our first pass, we got heavy here, baiting side control. Our second pass, we owned both sides, baiting the mount. This time, if I hold Tim's shoulder down here, can you turn that way? No. If I hold his shoulder down here, can you turn that way? So which way? He has to. If I hold here, Tim has no choice but to turn away, which is what I want, and that's going to expose the back. So I'm going to break his grip on me, because right now Tim's going to hold on. A lot of times people will hold on for dear life here. They'll try to push you away. So Tim, if you're bench pressing me away, that's not a big deal. We're just hips in, turning, crunching down. I don't want to lock up here. If I hold this shoulder down, he's not able to turn. That's certainly not negative, but if I want the back, I want him to look to turn. So we're going to get heavy all the way onto the near side. The same side as the leg. I'm looking to pop his knees apart with pressure with my hip directly down on his knee. So we drop underneath, and I'm ducking my head all the way under. From here, if Tim doesn't go anywhere, we could look to attack with different submissions like the arm triangle. But most times what an opponent's going to realize is that they do have the ability to turn into you. Can you turn in? Exactly. That exposes the back. When Tim gets all the way to his knees, it's not impossible for me to attack by any means, but he's certainly in a more defensible position. So my job is to attack within the transition and get him before he gets from point A to point B. You'll notice people are just much more explosive from here, and they can do all kinds of wacky stuff that we don't want to get into right now. So we find ourselves with our foot across. I get heavy to the near side. And as soon as Tim tries to turn, I start to lean into him. My chest is on an even plane with the ground to avoid getting tilted, and I'm pressuring in, and I'm going to slowly start to curl my body around. There's nothing stopping Tim from turning away. At any point in time, if he decides to stay put, we simply pass. But he can bull his way to his knees. I hold on tight, my feet stay in, and we shoot the hook. So, important points here. Let's rotate. When my foot steps across, I need to make sure that my right foot stays down around the base of Tim's knee. If it's all the way up into his hip, this is a lever here and I lose control over his leg. I need to make sure that Tim does not get his knees underneath him, otherwise he's going to be able to be explosive. And again, that gives him opportunity. Whether or not he takes advantage of it, who knows. But we're here, I kick him away, foot comes in, shoulder in front so that I can do whatever it is that I do with my right hand, base out. Heavy pressure to the near side. At this point, once I do decide to get heavy, my right foot has to come off the floor. So we sprawl back. We start to twist. I want to control right here, right above the knee. Absolutely critical. As Tim turns away, my foot is holding. Watch. Right now, if I let his foot go, Tim can slide his knee underneath him, get to his knees. Here, can you slide your knee underneath you, please? No, that gives me the opportunity, as his hips slip up off the floor, to get my left foot into this space. So as Tim turns away, my foot comes in, and we have our hook on the back. Very important. Without that, doesn't mean it's not going to work. Not necessarily. But you're certainly giving your opponent opportunity, and at a high level, when you give people opportunity, they generally take it. So, one time at regular speed, we'll go from both angles so you guys can see. Step over, kick, come up, base. To the back. This time the more controlled version, kick. And we end on our opponent's back looking to finish. All right, guys. Our next series of exits/entries from the 50-50 are going to involve coming to our feet. Coming to your feet's not a bad idea. You just need to make sure that you're in proper base and that your opponent's not going to be able to tilt you around. If anytime you're able to make me off balance, whether it's striking, grappling, you name it, I'm not able to launch force effectively. So make sure, again, your number one concern as you go through the following progressions is going to be maintaining your base and maintaining your balance so that you don't have to deal with the other guy harassing you the entire time. So, again, here we are on the 50-50. We've already discussed proceeding forward, and it looks like also, for the most part, turning in towards the move is a very, very poor choice. If I turn in, we expose the heel hook. Also, there's no roll, and also turning inward starts to reduce space. Reducing space isn't bad. If I want to finish the footlock, turning in is a great idea because it starts to get me after his leg. I can start to grab him, I can split his feet, come after him for the footlock. But remember, we need to create space in order to move. So if I need to create space, turning inward is doing exactly the opposite of that. Space exists over here. My opponent exists over here. So if I'm looking to move around, get myself out of here, I need to make sure that I'm going towards daylight, which is to the outside. So here, again, I turn hard to the outside. My foot's on the floor, and I'm going to look to stand up and base. This time, I'm not even going to come back to face Tim. I'm not bringing my foot across. I'm simply standing up. It's very important that when we do stand up, we do not get to both feet. When I stand up here, I come to my knee first, then to my foot. If I stand up here, I'm pretty precariously balanced. Tim can whip me around and tilt me here. And the second I fell, you notice my foot came off the floor. I was super risk. The odds of me being submitted there are huge. So make sure, do not come up to both feet. Your points of balance are exposed. Things are not going to turn out the way that you want. I'm going to turn out here, and I'm going to stay in three-point stance like I'm a lineman in football. Come out. You can get all the way to your foot in one shot. That's great. Otherwise, just go to your knee. It's not a big deal. Just make sure that you're stable the whole time. It doesn't matter how quickly you go as long as you can't be moved. So you base to your knee, and we stay to the outside. Notice the angle of my heel is facing in. If my knee comes to face Tim and it's even in line with Tim's body, it can be twisted back inward. I want to point my toes as far from Tim as I possibly can, all the way away. That's how you know your knee is going to be stable. So right here, Tim, can you pull my knee back in? they're not going to be able to move. I'm staying heavy. If I come up, again, I'm vulnerable. Oh, I can get twisted around, so stay down. My free hand is going to be coming underneath here, and I'm only standing up for demonstration purposes. My free hand is going to come underneath, and I'm looking to untangle us. So I'm heavy, my free hand comes underneath, and I push Tim away. Now all we do is I switch hands, step out. If I tangled the 50-50 from the bottom and I needed to score, I just got 2 points. From a fighting perspective, I've gone from the bottom to the top, and now I can punch, which is hugely valuable. So, again, hard turn to the outside. All your weight stays here. I maybe turn to the outside like it's cosmetically similar, but basically here, I can still be twisted back. Most of my weight is sitting down right on my hip. I want to put my weight out over here to make sure that I don't get moved around. Now, Tim, can you move me back? Okay, Tim can move me back. Yes, so your weight needs to go out into space. Foot comes free. I don't need my second foot because I'm not in a footlock battle right now. I'm ignoring Tim's feet, and I've decided I don't want any part of this. I'm taking my foot away, all the way out the back. My heel stays glued into Tim. Absolutely critical. Get to your foot or your knee first. And remember, standing up is death. Lean all the way away. Put your weight out over to a spot all the way away from your opponent where they can't get at you. Free hand is coming underneath the foot, untangling you. You can hold on to it. They're not going to be able to stop you. Now all I want to do is I'm going to start to take off. Switch hands, kick out, hold their feet. You can come back, look to pass. You could drop back in. So let's go one time at regular speed at this angle, then we'll give you guys another angle. We get caught in the 50-50, I turn out. Turn to the outside, you can move around, do whatever. The foot that you hold on to is going to change. As long as you maintain control of your opponent in one fashion or another, you'll be all right. Don't feel like you have to grab a specific foot every time. All that matters is that you split their legs enough to give yourself enough space to kick out, and then you hold on to their feet so they can't easily come back up. And you're out. All right. Our next escape is going to be similar to the last one, only because there's greater commitment here, there's greater reward. This is kind of like the 50-50 equivalent of staying in the cut. And as a result, you're going to be able to pass your opponent's guard or take your opponent's back based on their reaction. This definitely takes a little bit more practice, though, because you need to make sure that you're staying in balance and base the entire time. If your opponent's able to tilt you, you're going to have to be careful. So again, make sure this is a little bit more of an advanced attack, advanced technique, but I know that it's going to work well for you once you give it some work. Similar as before, I turn to the outside. Notice, last time I was on my foot, I can stay on my foot or I can come to my knee if I choose to. Being out here is fine. I'm very, very stable. Even though I'm not on my right foot, I'm still on my right knee, and it's very, very difficult for Tim to off-balance me. It still gives me the opportunity to take my right hand behind and push down. Now from here, my weight's on the floor. It's difficult to off-base me, so it's not wrong. The same movement as last time would involve just disengaging and turning to face. But this time, all I'm going to do is I'm going to step up and I'm going to sit onto Tim. If he tries to move one way or the other, we're fine. All my weight is on Tim. If I'm sitting back, he can turn into me and move me away. Not what we're looking for. I have to put my weight directly on him. So again, this is a little ballsier, but I guarantee you you're going to get better results out of it at a higher level. So we stay turning in. All my weight sits on Tim so that if he turns into me, we end up passing the guard. Notice my left hand threaded through to block the guard. I'm checking his knee. I could use this to turn him away. There's plenty of different things. You don't have to go. The specifics of how you're going to respond to your opponent's movement are always going to change. So I prefer not to focus on that. I think the bigger deal here, as always, is going to be base and posture and things like that. Because again, putting your hand here, or here, or here is going to change all the time. So we find ourselves in the 50-50. I'm turning away. Remember, we can be either on our foot doing this, this creates more space, which isn't wrong, but more space means more movement, and this is more likely that I'm just going to end up kicking out. If I'm down on my knee, though, again, my weight needs to not be on Tim now because I'm still too tangled. He has too much control over me. He can whip me around and all kinds of bad things, so I keep my weight over space. My free hand comes underneath and untangles this. I hold on to him. If I let it go, it's just going to come right back. And now, again, Tim could kick me, move me, all kinds of bad stuff. I don't know what's going to happen, but it all sucks. So, hand comes back, hold one, hold two. Sit directly back on your opponent. From here, all my weight is on Tim. He can try to turn in or turn away. Turning away results in me coming up on top for the sweep, provided that I keep my weight on him the entire time. If my weight drops off of Tim, I'm going to lose the position. So again, turn to the outside. Not on the foot this time, but on the knee. All my weight stays back. My right hand, in this case, because I'm attacking, our right legs are entangled. I get rid of him. I hold his foot down. I hold his foot down. Sit straight back. It looks a little bit weird, but I guarantee, like, what can he really do? Not a whole lot. Just try to push around, do whatever you want. He push, but right, he doesn't really have the means to do anything. Even if he off balances me, like if you push him back again, I just come right back up. If you off balance me enough to turn me in, to turn it all the way, worst case scenario, we end up exactly where we were before. So even though I'm attempting to progress further with the pass or to take my opponent's back, there's really no added risk, provided that I maintain control of Tim's feet so that he can't come up on top of me. So let's go one time at regular speed. Alright guys, our next attack is going to be the first in our advanced attack series, and this is going to be the 50-50 entry from De La Riva guard. Now your opponent can be standing or kneeling on this, and we'll start with a kneeling opponent just to give you guys the right idea, and then we'll get into standing. De La Riva guard, this is not meant to be a De La Riva guard instructional, but De La Riva, we have an outside in hook coming around our opponent's knee. Make sure again, when I'm square, your knees are not meant to contort into strange positions despite what other people might tell you. They're just not meant to do that. So standing in front of Tim right now with my knee at this awkward angle is not correct. I want to make sure that I scoot out to the side. My knee is still straight on so that it's in proper pushing and pulling position. My right foot is down at the base of Tim's knee. The key to this guard is not this foot here, my left, which is actually the hook that gives the guard its name. It's my right foot that enables me to off-balance Tim. With the gi on, we'd have the luxury of holding the sleeves and doing all this kind of cool stuff. No gi, not so much. So, Tim, if you're down on one knee, I'm taking my outside foot, my left, looping it around Tim's leg, and I can hook it inside the thigh. Now, when we actually go for the technique, for the attack, my left foot is going to come all the way through to Tim's far hip. So let's rotate. So we're here. My foot is inside the thigh. It's going to come all the way through to Tim's far hip and hook. It can't stay here for long because of the danger of the knee bar on my left leg. I'm now going to Granby across my shoulders, and I'm attacking Tim's left leg. My right foot is coming up and over. My left hand is coming underneath and grabbing Tim's leg. And I'm going to kick him straight backwards off of his base. It's very, very important that when you hit this attack, you're not trying to push your opponent into a post that exists. They're not going to go anywhere. You need to take them into dead space behind them. So, again, outside in hook. Hands can be doing a variety of different things, but the reality is, without the gi on, you're very rarely going to get. Tim can break my grip at will here. So my right foot hooks or is pushing. Job is to off balance him. Left foot comes through. Granby across the shoulders as your arm hooks in. Now don't try to push him here. I want to push him this way into the 50-50. It's not impossible to take your opponent over top of their foot, but it's impossible to take a good opponent over top of their foot because they just won't allow it to happen. So let's go once at regular speed with this, and then we'll show the same technique from standing. From the standing position, we're in largely the same spot, only our movement's not quite as restricted. Now, by the same token, neither is our opponent's. So we have to move quickly, and we have to respect the knee bar a good deal. So, the danger of the knee bar exists here. Tim's standing. If I step my foot through, he can backstep here, and that can be the end of me very quickly. So you have to be aware of that. I can't just sit my foot there. The de la Riva is not nearly at the same risk as the knee bar just because my knee is not committed. With my foot all the way through, my knee is about 5 inches right behind Tim. That can be dangerous. So we scoot out to the side, foot comes through as I rotate. I'm searching not for the ankle, but for the knee. Remember, if Tim lifts his foot up, lifts his leg up, it comes from the knee. So we're here. So if he lifts up now, he can't. I'm controlling over top of the knee. My hips can't stay lazy. They shoot up. My free hand comes inside, and we'd be looking to grab the knee, peel Tim out, and break him down just as before. So from a different angle, de la Riva hook comes through, hip snap up, hand comes through, twist him out, and the second the shield comes off the floor, remember, we're finishing. By the time they land, they should be tapping. Once at regular speed. Screw up. And that's that. All right, our next entry is going to come out of the inverted guard, and this is going to be one of a couple. You can attack the 50-50 directly from the inverted guard, particularly when your opponent is standing, but a lot of times going straight to the knee bar first is going to create a predictable response. Anytime I attack with linear, my opponent's oftentimes going to respond with circular, meaning I drive my hips, I try to apply a straight lock. They're either going to try to bend directly against it if they can, or if you start to extend my knee, I'm going to try to rotate to beat it. That's what we're looking to take advantage of here. So as Tim stands, I'm dropping into the inverted guard. Inverted guard can start out of anywhere, but we're going to start seated here, and all I'm going to do is Granby up onto my shoulders. The more control over Tim I can have, the better. Anytime I'm sitting down in guard like this without grabbing someone, it's not a good idea. This is low-level stuff. You need to be able to, you have to control your opponent in order to play the guard. Otherwise, Tim's just going to run around and bully me. So I'll try to grip his wrist, foot in the hip, and I rotate inverted. Now, we can attack a series of ways, as stated before, but right now what we're looking for is I'm going to shoot both of my hands in between Tim's knees. Not outside as if we're going straight for a regular knee bar, but I'm taking both of my hands in as if I'm going for a knee bar that's going to lock underneath my armpit. So we're inverted here. I shoot. I'm grabbing behind Tim's calves, and I'm shooting my hips up and into Tim's knee. If Tim does absolutely nothing, I can extend and finish the knee bar. But in almost every case, as I apply pressure with my hips, the opponent is going to rotate, bringing us directly into the 50-50. Again, as before, notice my calf is above Tim's knee, allowing my hands to be free. My job is to break Tim out of this position, not try to deal with it here. So I grab the knee with one or two hands, I peel, and I apply added pressure with my hips by driving them into the bend of his knee and then rotating to bring him down. Again, we're driving straight through Tim's legs, straight through our opponent's legs. So if we're up here straight backwards, both legs are coming in, both hands are coming in. I can do it from here, but now I have to move my hands. So if we can take both of our hands inside, we're better off. So we're inverted, both hands come inside. I drive my hips up. Tim rotates, immediate grab on the knee, twist, onto the footlock before he has a chance to defend. Let's go one time at regular speed. So, if we're rolling, get in good position, play around a little bit. Straight to the footlock. All right, guys, our next entry from the inverted guard is going to be an outside 180-degree spin. This one's going to be a little quicker. It's not going to be as direct line of attack, and you can thread this from anywhere. It's really pretty. It's a super versatile attack that I know you're going to have a lot of success with if you do play this position. Now, again, so Tim is up passing. Okay, I'm in regular standard guard. Don't just get in the habit of doing stuff like this. Tim will just swap my legs out of the way, and I will be passed or have him on my back before I can realize even what's going on. You have got to grab the other guy. So however you decide to do it, that's fine. You can enter this isn't an inverted guard DVD, but you can enter the inverted guard any number of ways. But the idea is I'm controlling Tim in a meaningful way, one way or another. So again, you can enter the guard in any way that you choose. Just make sure that you're grabbing him in a meaningful way that's preventing them from just pulling your legs aside. So now, once we are in the inverted guard, before we shot our hips straight in, this time, the reason this is so sneaky is because it doesn't look like anything. I'm taking my foot, I'm going to try to control Tim's ankles. I'm taking a foot out and around. My foot is going outside in and threading in between Tim's feet. It's this simple. Outside, in. You can hook, if we rotate, other way. Your foot doesn't have to make it all the way to here, because you'll notice there's dead space right now that where Tim's not controlled. Oftentimes when you hit this entry, our foot is coming outside, in, and hooks on the far side leg. What this does is this gives me control over both of Tim's legs rather than just one. If I hold here, Tim can push down on my feet, he can step up and out. It's not impossible, and if he does step up and out, this is different, but we're going to switch. But the idea is I'm losing control over Tim. At all times, I need to preserve what control I do have. I'm already on the bottom. That's bad enough. I don't need to compound it by just trying to float around. That only works when you're way better than the other guy, and the other guy's not very good. So we're controlling the ankles. I can use my free feet to do whatever it is that I want, typically damaging his balance and base. Outside foot comes out, around the back, and hooks on the far side hip. This leg is open just for demo purposes, but I really need you guys to see this. My free hands are grabbing. I can hold above the knee. I could grab the other knee. Anything that you feel is going to prevent them from moving, just make sure it's not down here. It's got to be above the knees. Now, as I come around, my foot travels from across his hip to the near side hip, and I can reinforce it either with my other foot or with a triangle. This is not as stable as the triangle, but it gets there much more quickly. So you can use this in the interim between going to your deep lock. So we'll go once at half speed and then once at regular speed. So we're here, rotate, catch. And now once at regular speed, so just pass it forward. And you can catch. One more time. And we finish our opponent. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Next attack is going to be very, very similar. It's a chain off of the movement we just showed. You can actually turn this into a drill if you'd like, but we'll break it down as just a simple technique for right now. So same thing, Tim's up standing, I'm in the inverted guard. We're going to attack one leg. Tim's going to step that leg out because either A, he's real sharp, he's on the money, or B, I screwed up one way or another. Both can happen, and we're going to transition to the other leg. Thankfully, unless Tim has learned to levitate recently, he's always going to have one leg on the ground, which means whichever leg is on the ground, we are going to be attacking it. So, as I thread outside in, just like before, Tim steps the leg out. I switch straight back, right into the 50-50. So again, whichever leg he steps out, we go outside in, catch. Tim feels the danger, steps out. By the time his foot lands, he's going to be back into another one. So if the guy on the bottom, if I'm doing this very quickly, the reality is he's not going to be able to keep up, for more. But if I want to turn this into a drill, what we can do is we just switch back and forth. I catch and Tim steps out, and then I switch.
until I finally lock up, twist, and go. So we'll take this one at regular speed so you guys can get an idea of what it looks like. So we just pass him around. And that's going to be your 50-50 leg switch out of the inverted guard. Alright guys, our next move is going to come out of the inverted guard as well, and this time we're either, one of two things is going to happen. Either A, we're looking for the calf slice directly out of the 50-50. Most times you're not going to finish that, but that's the sort of thing that you can use to entangle to sweep your opponent. And then our opponent, or say for instance, we're looking for the calf slice and our opponent defends, or B, we fail in our attempt to hit the 50-50 and we end up a little bit low. So attempting to control above the knee, we're forced to drop to the back of the knee, and we're going to go to the 50-50 from there. So same deal, inverted guard. Let's break this down slowly. With the calf slice, or the knee separator, or whatever you want to call it, I'm trying to bend Tim's foot and trying to bend his knee. So we come around. Ordinarily, before I was threading my foot all the way up and catching. But if Tim pushes my foot down into the bend of his knee, what I can do is drop my body lower and force his knee to bend. So again, I catch, he pushes down, I'm going to force forward with my left leg, and I'm scooting back against Tim's foot. I could be looking to finish with the calf slice. This is a largely bogus finish, to be frank. Like, you just don't tap good people from here. But what you can get is an opponent extending their leg back again, which can allow us to rethread into the 50-50. So, again, you can threaten the calf slice. I can count on one hand the number of times I've ever seen someone legitimately very good finish with that. But it definitely hurts, and it's definitely going to get a predictable response because there's really only one way out of it. You bend my leg and it gets caught. I have no choice but to extend it. Extending makes me vulnerable to the 50-50. So, again, we thread our leg outside in. Tim pushes it down, I catch. Right into the bend of the knee. I want to make sure that my leg doesn't travel too low. See how I've lost Tim's knee here? He can step out. I drop. I'm scooting my body back against Tim's foot because if I just push here, I don't have enough force. My leg is not at a strong angle like I'm doing a leg press. My leg is at like a Gumby, bent to the side, weird angle. So I have to scoot my body backwards. I'm scooting backwards against his foot, and I'm crunching forward. If I were to attempt to finish the calf slice, both hands would come through onto the far side of Tim's leg, and I would crunch in and hip in. Definitely hurts. I would be hesitant to say that it's a high percentage finish at all. When Tim looks to extend, I'm going to rotate back through. We can either do one of two things. We can go back through the middle, or I can unlock and spin to the outside, lock in the 50-50 again. I would recommend the latter because coming through here isn't wrong. Going through, if Tim back steps around me, we're back into the 50-50. But trying to move myself through this space is very difficult. So instead, I'm going to take advantage of his momentary lapse in judgment, and I'm going to kick my feet up, shooting my hips high. I need to make sure that my hip jumps above his knee. It's absolutely critical. This isn't going to get it done. I need to shoot up. And now we rotate around. So one more time at regular speed, or at like slow speed, and then we'll go regular. So again, we're here. I thread up, Tim pushes down, scoot forward. And we lock the 50-50. Again. This time we thread through, Tim pushes down. Looking to finish, can't quite get it. And we finish. All right, everybody. Our next attack is going to come from the back. Now, I want to preface this by saying I think this is a good attack, but remember, everything has value in its own context. Utilizing this attack when you are winning or you're in an MMA fight or something like that is beyond retarded. So make sure that, again, if you're losing on points, you don't have any time to score, you don't think you can finish the match in time, this is a great choice. So I'm going to start on Tim's back. Oftentimes you'll notice I'll end up, if I can get both hooks in, that's great. If I have both hooks in and I'm scoring, unless I'm just not able to finish, we should be looking for the rear naked choke, ultra high percentage attacks, because again, as good as we want to be in the 50-50, realize, the back is about as dominant as it gets. I should be working on finishing from here. And as a student looking to improve, I shouldn't be trying to come up with tricky ways to fool people into winning from positions like this. If I can't tap Tim with the rear naked choke, I should train and learn until I can. Now, that being said, say for instance I'm here and I have one hook in on Tim's back. It can be difficult for me to get this second foot in, and if I don't have time, say Tim's winning on points, or and there's short time left in a match, what we're going to look to do here is I'm going to start to dump Tim off to his side. Some people can really, really rapidly defend this, and it's tough. So he keeps that elbow in. I'm like, man, this just can't work. My right foot is going to thread inside of Tim's, and we're going to rotate. So we come inside, I push him away, and we step into the 50-50. Again, it's a slick entry, but make sure you're only using this. This is not the sort of thing that you should be using if you're winning in a match, or or in practice. Again, you want to develop your skills in other areas. But we come back. We've got one hook. Tim's defending. I can't quite get rid of him. I control his knee. I give him a push, and I stomp my foot. Notice, even though this foot's here, and I'm not technically in the 50-50 yet, it's not a big deal. Just slide through, drive back, and we look to finish. Fine points. There's a couple different ways this can go, and as always, you're going to have to change and alter little things here and there based on how big you are, how strong you are. Not only, it's not just about you, it's also in relation to the other person. Can I move them physically? Are they too big? Can I move them because they're smaller than me? Can I pick them up and move them? There's different things that you're going to use at different times. So remember, the fine, the put your hand here, put your hand there kind of details of this are going to change all the time, so I'm not as concerned about that. What I'm more concerned with is the following. Again, let's say we start head on this time. Here we are, locked in. I'm trying to finish. With my left hand coming into the neck, Tim's right hand is typically going to be occupied stopping it. So again, I don't have this hook in. I'm having a difficult time. All I'm going to do is I'm threading my foot through. I'm going to kick Tim off of me with my right leg. I'm releasing him with my left, and I'm kicking him with my right. One. Now I'm grabbing a hold of his knee. This is everything. I'm kicking through and stomping my foot to the mat. This is exposing his heel, and we're going to finish. This is not the sort of thing, every now and then, moves like these, because we're so tangled up, sometimes happen very quickly, and other times you have to inch your way to them. They tend to happen quickly when both you and your opponent move in opposite directions, meaning I'm on Tim's back, and as I kick him out, he tries to turn in, and our foot lands. If Tim stays put and really and is aware of this particular attack, say we train all the time, he can give me a harder time, but I can still scoot myself around and into the position. So again, don't be discouraged if it's not looking, it's not happening lickety-split and lightning fast every single time. It's not always going to work like that. Sometimes you can slide right into a position. Other times you have to use your dominant position to bully your way in. So let's go once at regular speed so you guys get an idea of what we're looking at. Okay, Tim's on his side. I can't quite finish it. Stop, sit, right back. One more. Can't finish, hook. Right into the 50-50. All right, guys. Proper utilization of footlocks as to defend sweeps and to protect against your opponent's guard is a hugely valuable skill, particularly when you're talking about high-level competition. Falling back for a footlock a standard footlock in many cases, as you guys will see, whether it's Abu Dhabi or like MMA. Now, the one thing is, it's just because footlocks fail a lot of times does not necessarily mean they're always a poor choice. Because frankly, most of the time that you see people attempting them, the person doing the attempting is not particularly good with footlocks, and as a result, they're likely to fail. But properly utilizing the 50-50. Particularly, as you guys have noticed, being that we can now control position to pass and sweep and come back on top, and our opponent can't pass us, it's not nearly as high risk a proposition as falling back for, say a straight ankle lock, which has a lot more that can go wrong with it. So if we find ourselves stuck in our opponent's X guard, our opponent's feet are extremely vulnerable, and we're going to take advantage of this. So here I find myself in Tim's X guard. It's extremely important. I can't do anything. Like if right now I'm in proper position, see I'm seated upright, I'm kind of balancing. This is not a, you know, move me around, do whatever. Like this isn't a problem. I can play around and I don't even need my hands right here. If I'm getting constantly moved around, I'm not footlocking anything. So realize utilization of footlocks and jumping to the 50 is not a substitute for actual, you know, for your grappling skills. It's not like a quick thing where I'm just going to like and just fall back for his foot. Those are the times if I don't have proper positioning, none of this is going to work. So again, make sure that you understand you need to be in base and you need to be in posture if you want to have a good chance of pulling this off against anybody good. That being said, when you do have those things and you can stall your opponent's guard and not feel off balance, you will have a hugely great amount of success with the 50-50 attack from here. Now notice right now, Tim's foot is stuck behind my knee, pretty inaccessible. I mean, trying to push this down is difficult. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to hip into Tim. I'm sitting all of my weight on top of his right leg. What this is going to do is this encourages, he has two choices, allow me to continue to squash him, or it encourages him to push back. When Tim tries to push back, my right hand is going to come for his knee and I'm going to drag it through. So we're here, he pushes back, I drag the leg through, I'm falling to my left hip and I'm throwing my right leg over top, because remember, this is great at holding me from going backwards, but it's terrible at stopping me from doing that. That's what this is for. So here, if I try to leave, Tim's foot on the front of my hip stops me from leaving. If I try to go backwards, Tim's foot on the back stops me from going backwards. But once I remove this, there's nothing stopping my leg from progressing forward. So for the 50-50, I hip in and drop straight into it. And again, if Tim races up into me, that's great. It doesn't do anything. I can't be passed. I'll push him right back, finish the foot lock. Alternatively, just as before, we can come up and pass on our own, should the situation require it. You're not taking a high risk. It's not as if, for instance, I'm going into and just trying to go and dive for a toe hold, which if this doesn't work out, things are getting ugly for me. I don't have the positional control there. So, again, the 50-50 from the X guard. Remember, see I'm hunched over? This is terrible. Particularly when I have a gi on or I get brought down here, man, I'm about to get face planted. Terrible. Hips in. Remember, if I wanted to punch, always think about if you could punch your opponent in the face, would you be able to do it? I can't punch now anyway. It'll keep you in proper position. So, hips in, drag the leg through, outside leg slaps over. Straight into the foot lock. Their feet are occupied, they're not going to be able to protect in time. Worst case scenario, if they do protect in time, we just sit up, split their feet, and finish. So, from a different angle, so Tim moves me around. And there you have your 50-50 entry from the top of the X guard. All right, guys, our next entry is going to be from the omoplata, and it's a little bit out there, but I know that I've had great success with this in practice. The one time I did try it in a super fight, I ended up sticking my arm out and getting my arm like torqued pretty good, but that was due to improper execution, not necessarily a poor technique on my part, or not necessarily improper execution on my part rather, not necessarily a poor technique. So basically what we're looking for here is we're looking to break our opponent's posture with the omoplata. When our opponent defends, pretty much anytime when you're talking about a high-level grappler, the defense to almost anything is proper posture and proper positioning. It's not tricks and jumpy nonsense and stuff like that. So if someone omoplatas me, I'm going to be looking to come up and wrench my arm out. We're going to take advantage of that instinct. We're going to roll backwards into the omoplata, or into the 50-50. It's going to be very, very similar to the inverted guard as we're almost transitioning through it. So when I catch Tim in the omoplata, remember, we're here. The omoplata is not this. This is a poor execution of the omoplata. I have no base and I have no control. Make sure very, very similar, like, and by similar I mean exactly like the way Marcelo Garcia teaches it, we're looking to turn to the outside. This is going to make it very, very difficult for Tim to posture up. When he does, from here, he can't posture up without building any kind of base. Right now, if you'll notice, I'm on my hip, Tim's on both knees, he has not a chance of sitting up. Here, Tim doesn't have to step up in order to posture because I have such poor base and I have no positioning. I don't have the means to apply force forward. So we want to stay all the way on our side here. This leaves Tim with no choice but to step up his left leg to protect his left arm. When he does that to look to posture, I'm going to roll backwards and into the 50-50. Like I said, it's a little bit ballsy and it's a little bit out there, but if you can yoke them down well enough with the omoplata, it definitely can work for you. So we set the omoplata. Tim starts to posture up. The more of a reaction we can get, the better. So when he sits up, I'm going to roll backwards over my inside shoulder, taking my outside leg and thread outside in to the 50-50. Rotate in, torque the knee out, take their leg off. One more time slowly, and then at regular speed. So we hit the omoplata, not here. I'll just get, right now my base is about the size of my butt. If Tim sits up, whoa, that sucks. I can't do anything from here. I have no positioning. I'm just flailing around. Regardless of whether I want to try the triangle or whatever, it's not going to work against anyone good. So turn to the outside. Tim tries to posture up again. I don't even budge. He's going to have to step that leg up. When he does, do not reach out, please. I did this, and I got arm locked. Don't do what I did, please. It hurts, I can tell you. So we're here. Catch, torque, finish. Once at regular speed. And we finish off the omoplata with the 50-50. All right, guys. Our next entry is going to be from the sitting guard, and it's going to be similar to an arm drag, but that's not an arm drag. It's a leg drag. And all we're doing is we're pulling our opponent by us. We're scooting in as we simultaneously pull our opponent by us. Now, again, your amount of pushing and pulling, moving is all going to be variable based on how big or small you are. If you're a 180-pound man wrestling a 120-pound person, the odds of you moving the other person 100% of the way are large. If you're 180 pounds, they're 180 pounds, you're probably going to move them a little bit, and they're going to move a little bit, and you'll move a little bit. If you're tiny and they're huge, you're going to have to move all yourself. So that's all going to change a little bit. But basically what we're looking at here is a situation where I'm sitting upright. I should have my feet doing something. Remember, we don't just sit here like this. Tim will pass me like nothing. So I'm scooting in. All I'm doing is I'm reaching my right hand 5 fingers behind Tim's right knee, and I'm kicking my foot past him. Because remember, when we 50-50, we're right leg to right leg. So I'm scooting past Tim, putting my hand on the floor, and dropping right next to him. Now, obviously, if I sit here for a second, Tim will drop his knee on my chest, and it's going to get bad. So what we need to do is execute this quickly. You can scoot in as if we're going to try to move, we're going to try to come up around the leg, kick past, and we snake our legs up and around. What's wrong with my left foot right now? There's nothing holding me here. Tim could push it down. Uh-oh, that's bad for me. My left foot needs to make sure that it's hooked around his back. I need counter pressure. Now from here, when I hook around Tim's back, I can extend with both of my legs, which starts to engage the big muscles in my body and my lower body. If I'm triangling, I'm engaging little weak muscles on the sides of my legs. I want to use my hamstrings. So we're here, I'm extending, I'm crunching. Now I grab, twist, finish. Again, we're dragging the leg by. Come in. You can control any number of ways. The bonus of scooting all the way in, greater control, lower mobility. You're going to have to make the determination on your own as to what the proper choice is at the time. Right here, I prefer to grab, give the guy a little space, kick past. My whole body scoots through. Right leg comes outside in. Not to here, my hips shoot up. Notice how my hips are up off the ground. You have to have that. Now twist and finish. One time regular speed to give you guys a little better idea, and then we'll go one time regular speed from another angle. Okay, from the other side now. And that's going to be a simple leg drag from the seated guard into the 50-50. All right, guys. This entry I was able to successfully use at Abu Dhabi in 2007, and I got this one from Bruno Frazzato. And this is a pretty cool entry into the 50-50, and it drops you into a slightly different position. It's a little bit more gi oriented. Like if you have the gi on in this one, you can really get a hold of the guy and drop him on the back of his head. But no gi, it still works out very well, even though our goals are a little bit different because of the existence of the reverse heel hook. So what's going on here is Tim is going to be standing. I'm looping my right leg through, and I'm taking my right arm underneath, and I'm putting like a vice around Tim's ankle. I'm gluing myself in here. So again, my right hand is just like half guard, even though we would never play this type of a position because I don't have the control over Tim's knee. This could get pretty ugly. When we can loop my hand through, I do have a pretty good degree of control over Tim's legs. So again, we come underneath, grab our own ankle. My free hand now is going to be pushing Tim's knee away, because if I step up and over, Tim can snatch a toe hold, and that can get real bad. So I need to, again, try to deny him base, try to mess with his balance, because that's going to destroy his ability to apply force. So if we square up a little bit. Okay, I'm pushing here, and I'm winging my leg around and through, kicking both feet through. So now, again, we're locked into like this ankle vice type thingy. I throw my left foot through, and now I release my right leg back around. We're ending up underneath our opponent's leg in this case. With the gi on, we would be, controlling the sleeve, and we would have a lot more leverage there, a lot more that we can do. Without the gi on, I'm just going to, again, twist Tim's knee, sit him down, not backwards, because he's got base. That's no good. The dead angle is the back corner. Push the foot down, catch, or, depending upon the situation in the match, retract my foot, base out, pass, take the back. Where we end up there is going to be based on, I can try to bully and force it to a certain extent, but the back, the mount, the pass is all it's going to be at least slightly variable based on what Tim decides to do, because I'm not always going to be able to dictate everything, just because I'm not quite that good yet. But the idea is we always want to try to make sure that we are responding not in the way that we want to, but in the way that the match dictates we should. If I'm losing on points or it's 0-0, get after that heel hook. If I have to score right away, ignore the heel hook, come up on top, score the points, and win. So right hand comes through, grips inside. Left hand is doing something, because if I just throw my foot out here, it's on an island, Tim can step away. I want to hold on him, push him away, throw my feet through. Right foot comes around, and as we rotate, we're around the knee. Peel him. Kick your legs. You are extremely strong stomping like this. So once you peel them, stomp your legs to the direction that you want to go, and you're going to put them right down. So let's get at this once in real time. Okay, so we scoot it. To pass, one more time. And that's that. Sorry about that. All right, what we're moving on to now is going to be advanced leg lock finishing. This is going to look a little bit different and probably a little bit unorthodox. You may or may not have seen this before, but I think once it's explained, you guys will get the value of it. Right now, if Tim puts me in a standard reverse heel hook, or a heel hook of any kind, notice Tim is prepared to turn my heel towards my left, his right, If I stay put, Tim is going to break my leg off. So right now, let's see, you're in reverse heel hook. Okay, so here we are. We're not in the 50-50 yet. We're in a standard reverse heel hook. If Tim turns my foot, I immediately tap. If I don't get to move my hip, if Tim turns my heel independently of my knee and my hip, my leg is going to break. My ligaments are going to extend, stretch, and then tear. So as Tim turns my foot, I'm going to roll, hopefully as fast, if not faster than Tim. So if we roll in unison, watch what happens. Nothing. We're in business. We just keep on rolling. If we come back for a second, my defense here, when we go for real, is you turn my foot, it's to turn ultra fast, turn faster than Tim can. And the thing about it is, you'll notice Tim has his hands committed to the heel, he's hurting me. My hands have to be committed to the ground. In order for me to move my hips, like right now, if I sit here like this, I'm stuck. I can't move. So I put my hands and feet on the ground, which allow my hips to move independently of the floor and swivel. So right here, as I go to turn, as I commit my hands, I can move faster than Tim can. This is one of the big reasons why it can be so difficult to finish the reverse heel hook if you don't snap into it and get them right away. So the same thing can happen from the 50-50, although not as easily. If Tim comes over to the 50-50, I can rotate. He can rotate. It's tougher for me to move because of the nature of the position, but I can still try to outrun him. It's pretty annoying. It's not the end of the world, but we want to try to nip that in the bud. So here's what we're looking at. If I find myself inside of the 50-50, it's not safe for me to leave my foot out. Tim's going to get it. However, if I have Tim's foot, right now, because we've already gone over the 50-50, you guys know that the goal is to hand fight here. But say Tim doesn't realize that and he tries to spin really hard. I'm going to have to deal with this. This is pretty annoying. Notice how his hip came up and over? That's not good. That's his body matching what I'm doing to it. So here's what we can do. If Tim had no arms, I could stick my foot across his body. Tim, can you turn your hip over now? No, he's stuck. My left leg is holding his hip down so that any torque that I put into his heel is going directly into the knee and he can't recover. So here's what we're looking at. Mid-transition on the 50-50, I was able to successfully do this to Henry Matamoros. He's a pretty good black belt. And the idea is I turn Tim's heel, and as soon as I realize that he's committed his hands to the floor, I know that I can leave my feet open. I can't just do that normally because he's going to footlock me. But I've got my grip already on his heel. Tim starts to turn. I turn with him. Mid-transition, my foot comes across. He keeps trying to turn. He gets stuck. He was expecting to keep rolling. Bang! And there goes their leg. The reverse heel hook works the exact same way. That is a reverse heel hook, but the standard configuration reverse heel hook looks the exact same and works the same way. Here we are. I'm locked in. If I try to finish Tim, only the problem with this heel hook is Tim has a way out, so he can definitely outspin me. What I'm looking to do here is I'm going to step my foot. I could stick my foot across here, or if my foot is threaded inside, I can stick my other foot across. The idea being simply to hold down Tim's far hip so that it can't match his roll. When I move, I don't want the rest of him moving. I want to staple him to the ground as I turn his heel because that's what's going to tear his knee. So here we are in the reverse heel hook. Tim starts to roll. I roll with him. I kick my foot across. My foot's it looks as if my foot is at risk, but there's no way he's going to beat me in this race. I've already got my hands on his feet. By the time Tim even thinks about going back for my foot, he's done. Also, let's say absolute worst case scenario. Tim does manage to catch my heel. I'm going to win this here. I've got the reverse heel hook. Tim's knee is isolated. Tim's turning my foot. It's definitely going to, I wouldn't want to let this happen and sit here, but my knee has some play in it. You'll notice my knee is not isolated. As a result, my ligaments, my knee is going to be able to move to compensate for the torque Tim is putting in it. Contrast that here, if we say ready, set, go, and we both turn, now I may get tweaked, but Tim's going to the hospital. So it's very, very important to understand this is a situational response only, but the idea is you can get as creative as you like. Let's take it one step further. The same idea, if I could push Tim's foot away. Tim, if you try to turn, please. If I push Tim away, this accomplishes the same end. It's just not quite as stable. My foot's not at risk, but Tim can dodge my foot and turn. So here's what we're looking at. If you ever find yourself in a situation where you're attempting to finish your opponent and they start spinning, you can, once you get comfortable with these positions, remove one limb and stomp it across their body. to pin their hip down with the purpose of pinning their hip. So I start going for the footlock, Tim starts to turn, boom, right here. Now we finish. Tim's knee is going to be done. In the transition of the 50-50, I would not recommend doing this until they commit their hands to the ground. Because if I sit here like this, let's rotate a little bit so everybody can see. Obviously, if I sit here like this, I could run myself into some trouble. But what we're doing, again, is mid-roll, my foot is making its way from the triangle to crisscross, and I'm not flaring my knees, I'm extending them. Can you lift your hips, Tim? No, if I flare my knees, can you lift your hips? To a certain extent, he can. So make sure that when you do stretch these out, you want to stomp your legs, maximizing not only your structural stability, but your muscular force, and bang, we're going to finish. So here's what it looks like once in real time. Let's get all the way back. Okay, so Tim spins and I spin. Right into the footlock. With the reverse heel hook. Tim spins and I spin. Right into the reverse heel hook. So again, I wouldn't recommend playing around with these until you get more comfortable because you are at minor risk. But once you understand the concepts and how they apply to this position, you will severely strengthen a lot of your heel hooks and you'll not have to worry about people spinning out on you.